Good evening, everybody. This is another episode of Let's Talk About It with JTM. We are live with Jeff Burris, former cornerback of the Buffalo Bills and All-American Notre Dame. How you doing today, Jeff?
Jim, I'm doing fantastic. How about yourself?
I'm doing great, man. It's good to hear from you, man. I know it's been a long time, but a lot of the Buffalo Bills fans still remember you and remember your play, and I know a lot of Notre Dame fans definitely remember you.
Well, trust me, I'm always a Bills fan at heart. My daughter was born there, so she's a Bills fan. So I follow, and especially now because in Upper Manhattan, several friends that are in the front office, so it makes it easier for me to continue to be a fan.
Well, let me ask you this question. They broke the drought last season, which it was a long drought. What did you feel about it when the Bengals scored that touchdown, man, and got them in?
It was crazy. I was watching it. I was watching both games, and I had texted Joe Shane, and I was like, man, hoping that this happens, and to see the Bengals actually score, which was kind of ironic because mentors was the DB coach for the Bengals, so it's kind of twofold, seeing them score and giving an opportunity to the team that gave me an opportunity to continue a long career. It was awesome. I was very excited and definitely excited for the team, Sean McDermott and what he's done as a head coach and just overall for the city, because the city deserves it.
Oh, that's great to hear. Now, Sean McDermott, he came in and he changed some things around with the team, especially coming off of Rex Ryan and being a little bit more attention to detail. And character was a big thing with this team. And that's one thing you kept hearing. You playing and coming in under Marv Levy. How big was character under Marv?
Marv, it's funny that you asked, because I joke with people all the time just about Coach Levy. And I'll be 46 in a couple weeks, and if Coach Levy came out of retirement and said he was coaching again, I'll start training again. That's how much I loved him. He was a perfectionist. In his method of perfection, he taught you how to be a professional. And when I got there, obviously with the type of guys we had in the locker room, Jim Kelly, Thurman Thomas, Cornelius Bennett, Bruce Smith, I can go on and on, Kent Hall. Guys, you learn how to be a professional. Henry Jones was one of my major mentors, and you learn, because that's what Marv was all about. And we knew how to be professionals. We knew what it took to win, and winning is a culture, and that's what Coach McDermott is bringing, a culture of winning.
Man, that's great. Now, in college, you played under, was it Lou Holtz that you played underneath?
I did. So, again, I go from one perfectionist to another perfectionist. So, for me, it was a simple transition. Both very astute guys. They were smart. I mean, it was a mental. They worked the mental more than anything else, because at that time frame, Jim, we're all athletically inclined. But there's a certain difference in the mentality that makes certain guys different. I mean, there are few and far between. Like, there's only a few Bruce Smith that come through. There's only a few Thurman Thomases that come through. There's certain guys that have Cornelius Bennett. There's certain guys that have some intrinsic things that you can't necessarily teach, or the athletic ability that those guys have. But then there are guys that just need the mental encouragement and the mental boost. And that's what being around those two guys, actually, they knew how to do it well.
Now, it's funny that we link up with you now, because after the drought, it's been a long time since Buffalo has found a quarterback.
Oh yeah.
Now, the time you came towards the end of Jim Kelly's run.
Correct.
That's pretty much forecasted as the last great Buffalo Bills quarterback. And now that they have selected Josh Allen, and he's supposed to be the future. What was it like coming into a team with Jim Kelly at the helm?
Jim was amazing. Now, I tell you, I just remember practice all the time. It was always competitive. First you got to try to cover Dre and Bill Brooks, and when Steve got in we had to cover those guys. But then when it came time to Jim was a competitor now, and he'd let you know. But one of the things is always just ready for my experiences with Jim as a punt returner. Whenever I didn't catch the ball and it rolled an extra 5 yards, he'd give me a look like, you know what, you better catch it next time. So, and but that's what champions do. That's what leaders do. They hold everyone accountable, and Jim held everyone accountable from no matter who it was. But in the same sense, he was charismatic. It wasn't, I people ask me all the time about my experiences with Jim. And we'd go through our competitive nature on the field, and then we all go to his house. That's the type of leader that Jim was, and he's a phenomenal man. And obviously, he and his family have done phenomenal things in Buffalo.
I'm hoping that Josh Allen has those same leadership qualities, because we've lacked those leadership qualities in Buffalo at that position for a lot of years. That gritty tough guy that Kelly brought, and definitely prayers to him and his family as he continues his battle and recovery.
Absolutely.
But Jeff, we want to talk about the secondary. Now, Buffalo's secondary was brand new last season, with Micah Hyde, Poyer, and Trey White, and even Ejan Gaines, who departed this offseason in free agency, all being new. But it seemed that they clicked very fast. They worked together. How hard is that to do and have that cohesiveness coming together in one offseason?
It's very hard to do. But you got guys like, Trey's. You look at him. He's a Nate Clemens, Antoine with. He's a stud, and it makes it easier when you have that talent level. And now with Jordan and the way Michael played. Now Michael's been playing that way, obviously in Green Bay, but he just given the opportunity to be a leader, he stepped up, and so those guys gelled well because they're young and enthusiastic and they believe. And that's part of the growth process, believing in what you're being coached, being what you're being taught, and believing in the system. And they all believe in the system. And now adding Vontae to this mix, I think the sky's the limit, because now you're adding a veteran that knows how to be successful and be dominant. And Trey's on that next step to being dominant. And you got two corners that have solidified the secondary, and the safeties are ball hawks and smart football players. So it'll be exciting to see what they do this year.
Now, an interesting thing about Trey White, the fact that Trey White was picked with the 27th pick in the first round by the Bills. And so were you.
Well, I wish my name could come in the same sentence as Trey. The kid's very talented. I have much respect for him. I enjoy watching him play, and it feels good to see a young man go out there and perform the way he performed last year, and hopefully continue to perform that way this year.
Okay, now since you're coaching at Louisiana Tech now, right? How hard is it to translate? Because when I'm watching these games, like Trey White, seems like the translation to college to NFL was very easy for him. How hard is that to do, to transition from a college cornerback to the NFL?
It's a tough challenge, but it goes back to the things I talked about before with the belief in who they are as a football player. And Trey has always had that at LSU, knowing that he could be a dominant corner. I think the corner position is one of the easier positions to make that transition, because you don't have to be in depth with statics. It's more simple than coming in and say being a linebacker, being a safety when you got to make the calls. The corners are not necessarily making the calls. They're listening for the safeties to give them the call. So it's an easier transition. Now the athleticism can have a chance to grow. And from what I saw from Trey, he learned the system very easily, and it translated to the field because he had the athleticism to make it work. But again, there's two things that also, like I said before, the coaching went into play. One being at LSU and one being with the Bills. So they taught him well, and he learned. And you got to give him credit, because it's easy to come in as a rookie and learn a new system, because the terminologies change. The techniques may be the same, but the terminologies may change, and those things may complicate some things. But Trey adapted very well, and he allowed his athleticism to come to the forefront.
Yeah, I thought he should have went to the Pro Bowl. When you look at his grades for the whole season, he was top 3 in the league, which is phenomenal as a rookie cornerback.
Absolutely.
I think another unsung hero of the secondary was Jordan Poyer. A lot of people were not aware of Jordan Poyer too much when he signed here. He had his best season in Cleveland, but had his season cut short.
Correct.
With a lacerated spleen. But when I look at this secondary and I see Poyer and the season he had Hyde and White, now pretty much that's almost like having three cornerbacks, even at in two safeties. Does the game slow down for a cornerback that has transitioned to safety and now everything is in front of him?
Well, and that's what the NFL actually is becoming more of that. I mean, the days of having Cam Chancellor as your safety, there's a few Cam Chancellors that can cover and still. The NFL is becoming more of that because of what Philly did. I mean, Philly spreading the field and RPOs. They threw some, and they're making it a space game. And you got to have guys that can play in space. So you, in theory, you do have four. You got four corners back there, and for a cornerback that's matured, but Micah played nickel, so that made a huge difference. So Micah initially played a Sam linebacker, so for him the schematics came easy because he had to learn the defense as a whole. And Jordan, just a matter of growing as a safety and learning the scheme. It gives him. It makes them better football players because the cover skills are already there, and now they understand the schematics completely. Now it's just a matter of understanding how the team's going to attack you, and I think that's what made the difference for all those four guys in the back end.
Now you played with the athletic guy at safety in Buffalo here, Henry Jones.
Without a doubt,
Henry Jones was definitely one of the more athletic safeties, if not a trendsetter in a way.
I agree.
The league. I
agree. With Henry being, and that's the thing that made us kind of unique, and that's what made Henry a Pro Bowl and All Pro, and one of the best players I played with. He had those cover skills. He can roll down and play in the slot whenever you need. When you have four guys that can cover, you don't have much deficit back there. Those guys can roll down, and it opens your scheme up a lot more. And then whoever that fifth corner may be, whoever you're bringing in this year, it makes it easier for a defensive coordinator to call whatever you want. And Leslie Frazier can call what he wants.
Now, with you being in the college game, did you follow Josh Allen any bit while you were there, while he was in college, or?
Well, I didn't get a chance to follow him a great deal. I knew of his name throughout the year, and you kept hearing the buzz about him. But for me, I didn't get a chance to really watch as much because obviously we're playing on Saturday and they're playing on Saturdays. Sundays were, hopefully try to get some NFL games in, but didn't get a good chance to really follow him. But I definitely know exactly who he is because I watched the highlights and he's very impressive. I think it was the perfect pick for him.
Now he's sitting behind two quarterbacks right now on the roster where he doesn't necessarily have to play immediately. But I mean, the reports from early camp or OTAs is that he's looking really good, and his arm strength that we all know he has been very live, we'll say.
Well, I think if you can go into the season without the necessary pressure of making them play, AJ McCarron, I think he can win. I mean, he can win. He can come in and do some things. And I think you have that valuable quarterback, and I think it makes it easier for a transition. I always go back to, and I'm not saying any of the other two quarterbacks to Brett Favre by no means. Having Aaron Rodgers having the ability to sit for a while and learn the schematics, and when he came in, it allowed his natural ability to come into play, and then he can make a play when he needs to make a play. But it's easier when you're not learning on the run, and the playbook is not limited. When Aaron Rodgers was able to play, he knew the whole playbook. It was open to him, and he was able to go out and perform and do whatever he wanted. And I think that makes a huge difference. If Josh has that opportunity, I think Buffalo has their quarterback for the next 15 years. But even if he doesn't, I think that you'll be able to go out and continue the success from last year.
Now, because you played with Jim Kelly, you played with Peyton Manning. And you played against Marinos and some of the young Steve Youngs and those guys. Does it seem like the game is going away from having to have that dominant quarterback and more to an offensive schematic system?
Regardless, if you have that trigger man that can win, I mean, you take away let's not. Philly won it because their backup quarterback was a starting NFL quarterback, and they just had a special guy go down. This game is all about who's making those decisions. The Patriots are great because they have Tom Brady. And now, fortunate, Jimmy Garoppolo goes to San Francisco, changes the culture because that position is the most important position on the football field, and it makes a huge difference. Now, you can have a dominant defense, you can win with that, but to be consistent in what you're doing, you have to have a trigger man that can be a leader and to control everything that you need to do.
Okay. Well, that's definitely true. Like I said, I think that Philadelphia had a lot of teams thinking, all right, what can we possibly get away with going forward, without going to the bank or without mortgaging high draft picks. But like I said, it doesn't always really work out that way like it did for me.
Absolutely. You better have in this league. You better have your backup quarterback better be a good guy. I mean, he has to be a player, and because if you lose a top-notch guy, it alters your game plan, and you don't want your game plan to have to alter too much and still have the success, and that's what Philly was able to do.
Right. Now, what are you expecting from this Buffalo Bill team? Because I think a lot of people last season thought that this would be a pretty bad team after the Watkins trade, after a couple of moves in off season. They thought, okay, this is the reset button, and surprise, you make the playoffs. Are you expecting a step back, or are you expecting still full steam ahead this season?
I still think it's full steam ahead. I just solidifying the offensive line again, consistency there. If Kelvin Benjamin steps up and proves what he's capable of doing, I think the defense has the playmakers to make some plays. And obviously, everyone's questioning losing Tyrod, what's the offense going to look like? Well, AJ McCarron is not a slouch now. He's not a slouch. He's a winner. And again, culture starts with the guy that's making the decision, and Sean McDermott is doing his. He's going to have these guys prepared. And you alluded to that when we initially started. He's brought something to this team, and I think with leadership from Brandon Beane and on down. I mean, I think the organization is in a good place.
Good, Jeff. Like I said, I really appreciate it. You're joining us today. Matter of fact, one more question.
Okay.
Let you get on your way. Tremaine Edmonds.
Okay.
Now, this guy's 6'5", 250 pounds, and he runs a 4.5 40.
Listen. When they drafted him, like I said, I got Lake Dawson is a friend of mine. Joe Shane is a friend of mine. When they drafted him, I'm like, man, that's a dude. I said Cornelius Bennett, the young Cornelius Bennett. There's biscuit for you right there. And if he comes in and plays half the way Biscuit did, you got a guy.
Now, by chance, have you talked to Biscuit since this draft, possibly?
No, we have each other on Twitter, and but I with recruiting and traveling, and my wife we're trying to get settled in the Ruston, Louisiana. I really haven't had a chance to do much, but again, like I said, I follow as a fan. I'm always a Bills fan, and but I have not had a chance to talk to him.
Well, Jeff, like I said, I thank you for joining us today. Like I said, you're always welcome in the Buffalo Bills family. A lot of Bills fans remember you and still adore you, and we just appreciate you joining us. Any words for the Bills fans?
Hey, just stay excited because this team's going to be a special team, and don't be surprised because I think Josh Allen is definitely the guy for you.
All right. Thank you so much, Jeff, for joining us. I really appreciate it, brother.
No problem. Take it. Okay.
Thank you. Everybody, that was Jeff Burris, former Buffalo Bill defensive back, Notre Dame All-American. Definitely thank you for joining us today. He had some good takes on the Bills. As most people think, and I'm hearing a lot of things like a lot of us think that they may take a step back, some think they'll go forward. But a lot of the older guys, man, they're saying they're going to keep playing. They're going to keep playing. So definitely, man, hope y'all enjoyed the interview. Hopefully we bring more to you. Like I said, I am your host, JTM, and this was Let's Talk About It, interview edition with Jeff Burris. If you joined late, definitely catch the recap of it. It will be on YouTube. Make sure you follow and subscribe to us on YouTube. And like I said, thank you. I'm your host, JTM. Catch you later.